Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome. My name is Nick Taylor. Today, we are going to talk about getting the most out of open source, from tips to tooling for contributors and maintainers, regardless of experience in open source. All right, a bit about me. I'm from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I'm a senior software engineer at dev/Forem. I'm at Nicky T online everywhere. You can also find me at my website, iamdeveloper.com. I also do live coding at livecoding.ca. Still don't know how I snagged that domain name, but YOLO. I'm also not a big fan of spiders. So you know Dev, a constructive and inclusive social network for software engineers. But what's Forem? Forem is the open source software that powers Dev. If you're interested in contributing to Forem, visit github.com/forem, Forem/Forem. If you want to pair on a Forem issue, visit iamdeveloper.com/pair. Who is this talk for? Contributors of any level, even first-time contributors. Maintainers of any level. Since folks have varying levels of experience in open source, the talk might cover some things that you are already familiar with, but hopefully you'll learn something new, even if you are a seasoned open source enthusiast. What we'll cover. We'll go over a bunch of tips when contributing, as well as a useful tool for contributing. For maintainers, we'll discuss some processes and tooling as well. Don't worry, first-time contributors, we got you covered. We'll go over some things you can do to get that first contribution. We'll move on to making a great issue, followed by making a great pull request. From there, we'll talk briefly about learning in public, go over some resources, and wrap things up. All right, let's get to it. Some tips for when contributing. Find a project that interests you. You want to be excited about what you're going to work on, so find that awesome project to contribute to. Be kind. It's not just about the code. Remember, behind the code, there are people. Be kind and respectful. This goes for contributors and maintainers. Have fun. Remember, this is not a chore or a burden. It should be something that you enjoy doing and look forward to contributing to. Just going to take a quick sip of coffee. Much better. Okay. Not sure what to contribute to? Explore GitHub. Visit github.com/explore. You can explore repositories that are trending based on a particular topic or a collection of ideas. You can even filter by programming language. Documentation is just as important as features and bug fixes. Documentation updates help out the community of a project. One of my earliest contributions to open source included an update to the Electron documentation. I was working on a project that used Electron and was having trouble with a piece of code in the project. I double-checked the Electron documentation to be certain, and then finally I realized there was a mistake in a code snippet in the documentation. It felt good to make that contribution, and I probably helped at least one other developer avoid the issue I ran into. Many projects are successful because of amazing documentation. React and Vue are a couple of examples that come to mind. Remember, maintainers are there to help you. It is a maintainer's best interest to help you because you are helping them. But remember, it's about people, so be kind. Ask questions in issues and pull requests. Don't be shy. This is a great way to gather information from maintainers and other contributors about the issue or pull request that you work on. If you plan on taking on an issue, ask a maintainer to assign it to you. Assigning the issue makes it clear to the project's community and maintainers that you are working on an issue. Maintainers and code reviewers have full-time jobs and/or other things going on in life. Be patient. They will get back to you on an issue or PR. Remember, it's not just code. There are people behind the projects you contribute to. All right, let's talk a bit of tooling. Install the GitHub CLI tool from cli.github.com. The GitHub CLI has been around since January, but it finally reached version 1.0 in September. Go ahead and take it for a spin. Using the GitHub CLI, my voice just squeaked, you can create a pull request right from the command line by running the following command: GH for GitHub, PR for pull request, and create. You'll be prompted to enter a title. By default, the title is the name of the branch. If you'd like to have a different title, add one, then press the enter key. Otherwise, press the enter key to use the branch name. Next, you'll be asked to enter the body of a pull request. You can press the letter E to launch the default command line text editor to add the body of the pull request. Otherwise, you can skip it by pressing the enter key. I always skip this, but because I prefer to do this later on in the browser, but this is a personal preference. Next, you'll be asked to submit the pull request or continue in the browser. You'll also have the option to add metadata to the pull request or cancel the PR. I typically continue in browser because I like to adhere to the pull request template of a project, but there is nothing wrong with submitting the pull request from the command line. Remember, you can always edit the pull request later on GitHub. Actually, the real reason I continue in browser is so I can add an animated GIF. We're big fans of adding animated GIFs on the Forem team. GIF or GIF? Never mind, I don't want to go there. Speaking of pull requests, if you are not aware, GitHub allows for draft pull requests. A draft pull request means it's out there so folks can get eyes on it, but it is not ready for review. It will also not be able to be merged until it is out of draft mode. As far as I know, the GitHub CLI currently does not support the draft PRs. For more information about the GitHub CLI, check out cli.github.com. Also, there is a link to GitHub's blog post about the draft pull requests in the resources section at the end of this talk. All right, let's talk maintainers. Also, just remember to check out the best practices for maintainers video. Brian Douglas, developer advocate for GitHub, goes through some great tips. Be kind and patient with contributors. Remember, contributors are helping you out, and if the code base is new to them, they may need some guidance. Words matter. Take time and be thoughtful when responding to folks in an issue or pull request. Remember, it's not just a project, you are fostering a community. Conventional comments might be of interest to you. My coworker, Michael Cole, an amazing engineer and awesome human, pointed me to the conventional comments site a little while back. As mentioned in the example in the screenshot, this is not worded correctly versus suggestion this is not worded correctly changes the tone dramatically. It's amazing how framing a comment differently can come across a lot better. Remember, words matter. Conventional comments are broken into three sections: the label, the subject, and decorations. Decorations are optional. So for example, in the screenshot in the slide here, the label is question, the optional decoration is non-blocking in parentheses, and the subject is the actual message. Here is an example of conventional comments in action in a discussion between my awesome coworkers. The fact that my coworker Michael explicitly mentioned this is a non-blocking comment gave me the impression that this conversation was more welcoming in regards to responding to it. Conventional comments might not be for everyone, but so far I am enjoying using them even though I'm still quite new to them. A link to the conventional comments site is in the resources section at the end of this slide deck. All right, let's talk about getting your project set up. Provide a README. This is the gateway to your project. The README should describe the project and what its purpose is. For example, here is the what portion of the Forem README in the screenshot. Your README should provide prerequisites and installation steps for your project. For projects that have minimal prerequisites and installation steps, include them directly in the README. For larger projects, include a link to the installation documentation. It could be an additional markdown file or a link to documentation site depending on the amount of documentation. Provide contributing guidelines. Adding a contributing document to your project helps set up contributors for success in your project. Provide a code of conduct for your project. A code of conduct sets the stage for contributors to work in a safe and welcoming environment. Maintainers, label issues to help yourself and contributors. For example, a label like ready for dev indicates that this issue is ready to be worked on. Create issue and pull request templates. Templates facilitate information gathering and/or steps you are looking for when filing an issue or creating a pull request. The more guidance you can provide, the better. There are links to creating templates at the end of this talk in the resources section. We talked about using the GitHub CLI as a contributor, but it's a great tool for maintainers as well. For maintainers, there are many things you can do with the GitHub CLI. For example, checking out a pull request, running the command ghco9799 will check out the pull request with the ID 9799. This is a lot easier than, I can't even remember what the actual command is to pull down a pull request without the GitHub CLI. So definitely try that one out. As mentioned in the tips for contributing, check out cli.github.com for more information on what you can do with the GitHub CLI. Projects run all kinds of tasks like unit tests, linters, formatting, etc. One way to ensure these run, regardless of the editor a contributor uses, is to use Git hooks. Having Git hooks in your project can ensure that certain tasks run before a contributor can commit their code to their local branch, for example. Two popular NPM packages if you're working in a front-end based project are Husky and lint-staged. Husky allows you to create hooks, and lint-stage will run as a hook task. For non-web-based projects, please refer to Git hooks in the official Git documentation. Here's a snippet of how we run pre-commit hooks in the Forem codebase. The Husky NPM package has a configuration file with a hooks property that determines what type of hook to run. In our case, we use the Git pre-commit hook. The pre-commit hook will run the lint-stage NPM package. So, for example, if I attempt to commit a JavaScript or JSX file, the following will run. First, Prettier will format the file based on our Prettier configuration. Next, ESLint will run and attempt to fix any issues it can. And finally, Jest will run any tests related to the file changes. If at least one of the pre-commit tasks being run fails, the file changes will not be committed. This is great. In this example, maybe the contributor forgot to update a unit test and is notified of the failure before it's pushed to GitHub. If all pre-commit tasks pass, the code is submitted to the local branch. We made some code changes, the linter and formatter ran, and unit tests passed successfully. Automation for the win. Git hooks are great, but they can be overridden via the -- no verify argument. For example, git commit -m for message with the message skipping git hooks and then the argument -- no - verify. Overriding Git hooks is generally frowned upon, but as a maintainer, there may be valid reasons for doing this. One use case we had in the Forem codebase is we initially had a lot of ESLint errors and had a year-long lintathon. During that period, if folks were doing feature work or bug fixes, they may have fixed ESLint issues related to their code changes, but they did not fix all the ESLint errors in that file as it was not related to the work being done. So how do we prevent a contributor from using --no--verify? So if we're using the hooks and they use --no-verify, the answer is we can't, but we can still handle this case. On your continuous integration server, ensure that those pre-commit tasks that were being run can also be run during a build. In the case of the Forem code base, we always run tests, but prior to our ESLint initiative, we were unable to run ESLint as part of our continuous integration, as it would fail all the time if we did. Once the lint initiative was complete, we added the ESLint check as part of the build. Now if the ESLint check fails, the build fails, and the pull request related to the failed build will be unable to be merged until the ESLint issues are fixed. Okay, maintainers, remember to use social media to get the word out on your project. Folks are looking to contribute to projects, so use Twitter, Dev, and other social media to your advantage. And lastly, don't forget to thank contributors for their PRs. Kind words can go a long way. Remember, you are building out your community for your project. And who doesn't like a thank you? All right, let's talk first-time contributors. Aside from exploring GitHub, check out the Good First Issue site at goodfirstissue.dev. Another great resource for first-time contributors is the @YourFirstPR account on Twitter. As the website states, Your First PR helps you get started contributing to open source by showcasing great starter issues. Also, when searching for an issue in a repository, look for labels like Good First Issue. Remember, maintainers are there to help you. Remember to ask questions and also provide information to maintainers that may be relevant. You've got your fix or feature all ready, but now you need to get it up on GitHub. Git can be intimidating. It gets better, I promise. There's nothing wrong with using a graphical user interface for working with Git. And don't forget that there's the GitHub CLI to help you create that pull request. Getting the work done might seem like the easy part if you are new to Git and GitHub. It takes a little while getting used to source control tools. Remember, don't forget to ask for help. A maintainer or even a friend or coworker can probably help you out with your Git woes. People you know and maybe even look up to have gone through their first contribution. Maybe it went really well and everything was perfect, or maybe it wasn't. Curious about people you follow and want to know what their first pull request looked like? Check out the website firstpr.me. All you'll need to do is add their GitHub username. I remember my first pull request. I was new to open source and nervous. I wanted my PR to be perfect. Spoiler, it wasn't. If you're curious what it looks like, go to firstpr.me and enter my username, NickyTOnline. Here's a screenshot of my description of my PR. Based on that description, it was definitely not perfect. All right, let's talk making a great first issue. Provide as much information about the issue you are encountering. Start off with a title that conveys the issue succinctly. In this accessibility issue, it's pretty clear what the issue is based on the title of the issue. Missing focus styles for focusable elements in forum administration pages. Describe the issue and how to reproduce it. This part is super important. Without the steps to reproduce the issue, it's difficult for anyone reviewing or taking on this issue to see it happen. Describe the expected behavior or outcome. This is super important as well. What should happen once the issue is fixed? Provide any relevant screenshots. In the case of this accessibility issue, I have a screenshot of the Chrome DevTools showing the style of the elements that should have some sort of focusable style. In this case, the default focus styling has been removed and there is nothing replacing it. Other things to consider when creating an issue are, what operating system is this occurring on? Is the issue on desktop, mobile, both? If the project is web-based, what browser and version are they using? I'll keep reiterating this point, but the more information you can provide, the better. As mentioned in the maintainers section of this talk, a great issue template can help with this. All right, let's talk making a great pull request. Again, provide as much information about the fix or feature. A great description about a pull request can go a long way. It helps provide context to a reviewer, as they may not even be working in this part of the code base and might not know the why of this pull request. Link to related issues or other relevant resources. Power tip. I never say that, but I wanted to say that. If you write closes before your issue number that you are referencing in your PR, it will be closed automatically when the PR is merged. If a project has a pull request template, use it. For example, in the Forem code base, in part of our pull request template, we ask what type of pull request it is. Is it a refactor, a feature, a bug fix, an optimization, or documentation update? Does your pull request have any user interface changes? If so, provide before and after screenshots and/or screen shares. Remember, a picture speaks 1,000 words. Write out clear steps to test a feature or bug fix. Providing clear testing steps is super helpful to a reviewer or someone curious about your PR. One thing I like to do once I've written out the steps is to try all the steps myself to ensure that I did not miss anything. Definitely not mandatory, but it's always fun to add an animated GIF describing how a pull request makes you feel. And remember, maintainers, a great pull request template helps a contributor make a great pull request. If you have a great example of a pull request in the wild, consider adding it to my discussion post on Dev, great examples of issues and pull requests. I'm hoping to build this post up to be a great resource for contributors and maintainers. The link iamdeveloper.com/great-pr will take you to the post on Dev. All right, let's talk learning in public. Sean Wang, also known as @Swix pretty much everywhere, has a great blog post about learning in public. I love a lot of the stuff Sean writes, so definitely give this a read. The link to the blog post can be found in the resources section at the end of this slide deck. On Twitter, tweet about your contributions. Write a blog post about your contribution to open source. Writing things down helps solidify what you learn, so go write that blog post. Hopefully on Dev, but wherever you blog. All right, we're just gonna go through some resources quickly. These are all links you can check out after the talk, so I'm not gonna go through each one. But these are a bunch of links that can make you become successful when working in open source. I encourage you to check them all out after this talk. All right, let's wrap things up. One thing I'd like to mention is that all the screenshots in the talk that are screenshots of GitHub issues or tweets are clickable and go to the issue, pull request, or tweet that they were pulled from. So you can see the full context of what we were talking about. As mentioned at the beginning of this talk, the webinar will be recorded and the video will be shared with you via email and also posted on the DigitalOcean YouTube channel and on DigitalOcean at DigitalOcean community at do.co/techtalks. A link to the slide deck will also be made available. Thanks so much for coming to my talk. I hope you learned at least one new thing, and I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to give me a follow on Twitter and Dev. I'm @NickyT online everywhere.
All right. Thank you so much, Nick, and thank you to everyone for joining today. If you have any questions, please type them in the questions box and we'll answer as many as we can now. Nick is an open source maintainer, and we'd love to hear from fellow maintainers or contributors who are on the line today. So we'll wait for a few moments for questions to come in. All right, first question. For maintainers, how to best deal with a good effort PR, but that went in the wrong direction? Intention is good, but none of the code will be kept, and the PR basically needs to be started from scratch.
That's a great question. As I mentioned in the talk, always be kind and respectful when responding to people. I would probably thank them for the PR, but I would also explain that this probably wasn't the direction this should have gone. But once again, you can be polite about this. It's easy to kind of just respond right away and say like, no, that's no good. Uh, take time when you respond to them, and just convey that, you know, maybe there's some good things in there, maybe there isn't, but I would just explain that it really wasn't the direction that they were looking for in this. Other things about that could be maybe try to follow the pull request more closely. So maybe it could have been addressed earlier, but either way, I think if you respond in a polite manner and just explain that this isn't the way you're going, I think that is good enough.